But the guys I'm thinking of, you said who stood out to you? Give me somebody that stood out that you're like, whoa, didn't expect to see that. And I would say it's number 60, Shaquille Brown, and number 66, Evan Anderson. These two guys stand out. They really stand out. And it's an amazing thing to stand out when you're a fourth string defensive tackle. And that's what those guys are. The ones are Javon Hargrave and Malik Collins. The twos are Jordan Elliott and Kevin Givens. The threes right now are Kalia Davis and T.Y. McGill. And the fours are Shaquille Brown and Evan Anderson. Let's talk about Shaquille Brown, first of all. He went to Troy. He's 6'3", 295. You should see the legs on this guy. I mean, it's just absolutely the biggest legs you've ever seen in your life. This guy's just absolutely power-packed, meant to play inside. He's 295 pounds, and he's pretty good, moves pretty well. I mean, we're talking about a pretty explosive interior pass rusher at 295 pounds with tremendous base. There's a lot to like there. I mean, very athletic, very natural. That's his weight. I mean, that's just the way he's shaped. So he's really explosive. But the guy who's even more incredible is Evan Anderson. This 6'1", 320. They list him at 326 pounds. I would say he's 340. He looks about 6'1", 340 from Florida Atlantic. But what this kid has cannot be taught. He's just got great natural power, and he does all these things right. I mean, for a it's a very, you've heard me say many times, it's a technique-rich position. And this kid's raw. I mean, we're talking about, he's 22. Florida Atlantic, 22-year-old. Now I can see after 2 or 3 practices, if there's one player that has stood out to me, I mean, Shaquille Brown would be close second, but it's this kid, Evan Anderson. Now, the 49ers gave him a big signing bonus. They guaranteed him like $280,000. Because they were trying to lure him away from signing with other teams because he was coveted. He was a highly coveted, undrafted free agent. Lots of teams wanted him. Niners had to pay him a lot of money to get him, and they did. It's really interesting. They were bad against the run last year at the point of attack. They've really been bad against the run at the point since DJ Jones left. This guy is just an absolute house. But like when you watch him, he needs to get in better shape. But he moves incredibly well at whatever weight he's at. You know, if he's 6'1", 340, I mean, this guy moves really, really well for 6'1", 340. This guy moves. So an athletic, moving player. The strength in his hands and his upper body, he anchors, he splits double teams. He has to be combo blocked. This is the big body that will keep bodies off of Greenlaw and Warner and, whoever else, Graham, Winters, whoever else the linebackers are going to be. Evan Anderson is a 2-gapper. He can handle combo blocks. He can split them. He's got crazy functional strength. I don't know exactly what his workout number was. I think it was a pretty good number as far as his bench, but functionally he's incredibly strong. But then just watching him in some of these drills where the linemen are moving around, he moves his 340 well. I mean, really well. And his natural strength is great. So there's a ton to love about Evan Anderson. I mean, You get that guy in, in the right program, dedicated around some, a coach that really can get him going. And maybe Chris is that guy. A year from now, you're going to have something enormously special. And you're going to sit there and go, "What? Evan Anderson's an all-pro?" Yeah, because this kid's so big and strong. He's 325 pounds or 340, somewhere in there, with incredible feet and rare strength. So, and really, really good speed and strength in his hands. And I mean, this kid's an exciting prospect. It's so funny because sometimes, certain players wind up going in the top 10, and then other guys, will be these incredible prospects, but they just get passed over altogether. Usually because they didn't go to the right school, or they were out of shape, or there was an injury involved. There's usually some story involved, but it happens all the time. And on the same team that found Brock Purdy with the last pick, they found this kid, Evan Anderson, after the draft, and were smart enough to pay him an absurd amount of money for an undrafted free agent to lure him in. And usually, if you look at a depth chart at, from when you cut from 90 down to 53, generally you're going to have, 10 defensive linemen would be like the most, right? 5 defensive ends, 5 defensive tackles. So let's just say the 5 defensive ends: Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, for sure. Those 3. And then 4 and 5 are going to probably be Drake Jackson, Robert Beal. And that's probably it. If one of those guys isn't right, then let's say Jackson can't get healthy, it'll be Robert Beal and somebody else, either one of the guys they have in this camp or likely somebody from another camp. But they'll probably keep 5 defensive ends and 5 defensive tackles. The defensive tackles will be Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave, Jordan Elliott for sure, probably Kevin Givens. So those 4 for sure. And that means that T.Y. McGill and Kalia Davis and Shaquille Brown and Evan Anderson could be battling for one spot. So that's going to be interesting. And I would say, based on what I've seen, Evan Anderson and Shaquille Brown are going to beat out T.Y. McGill and Kalia Davis. Now, T.Y. McGill's a veteran. He's been around. He's been on 8 or 9 teams, but he's functionally strong. He plays at a really good with a really good motor. He's a great guy. He's a 1-gap penetrating tackle. He's not a 2-gapper. He's more of a 1-gap penetrator. Kalia Davis, I think, is kind of the same thing. He's a little stronger, a little younger, and has a little bit more potential to be a pass rusher. But I think at the end of the day, they're very similar. They're 1-gap penetrators who don't play the run with great consistency. So then I really think Evan Anderson and Shaquille Brown probably, even though they're listed here as the 4th team, they're probably already ahead of Kalia Davis and T.Y. McGill. But the question is, they still, it's still one of, they could be competing against each other. Shaquille Brown against Evan Anderson, but watch those guys. Watch those 2 guys. To me, definitely Brown and Anderson would be like, if you said the first 4 days of camp, give me the thing you're most excited about. The Niners have in Evan Anderson a big, strong 2-gap tackle who also has pass rush ability, who looks like could definitely play in the rotation. And Shaquille Brown looks even stronger in some ways. And he looks like he might be ready to play in a rotation. So I mean, though it's a very difficult position to find interior players that can move, are strong, and can maybe give you some pass rush. And the Niners found two of them there in Evan Anderson and Shaquille Brown. So to me, that is the most exciting part of the first 4 days, is that they've got two special defensive tackles there that are going to really help. I mean, that was a major question, is like, what was their defensive line going to look like? Now with those two guys, they're fortified in the middle. Now the big questions on defense are really, is Drake Jackson and Robert Beal, are they ready to contribute? If not, can they find a defensive end on the street to help them? And then is Campbell going to be good enough stepping in for Greenlaw? Or do you have to lean on, Tatum Bethune, Jalen Graham, D. Winters? That's a question.